I went in expecting 10 minutes and a sticker on my chart. Instead, the doctor went silent. His hand froze on the ultrasound screen. Silence in a medical room is never nothing. It means something is wrong and no one wants to say it first. "Who performed your last abdominal surgery?" he asked. I answered easily, confidently. "My husband, he's a fertility specialist." The air changed. Not panic, not drama. Precision. He adjusted the contrast, zoomed in, stared longer than he should have. Then he asked carefully, "Did you ever consent to a permanent reproductive procedure?" The words didn't land at first. "No," I said. "That's impossible. We're trying for a baby." He didn't correct me. He didn't reassure me. He stared at the screen like it had confessed something he hadn't expected. I left with a referral slip clenched so tightly it tore. For 12 years, my life had been built on trust and control. Until then, I trusted my husband. He controlled everything medical, my pills, my cycles, my symptoms. He said it was easier that way, safer. When pain woke me at night, he said it was stress. When tests came back negative, he said we'd adjust protocols. He always said we. The night I overheard him on the phone, that word disappeared. "She suspects nothing," he said. "Yes. Stick to the plan." Plan. 2 days later, he left for a conference, kissed my forehead, reminded me to take my pills. The moment he drove away, I booked an appointment with a doctor he didn't know, someone outside his orbit. When the exam ended, the doctor stepped back and said, "Get dressed. We're not done." I asked if it was cancer. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Are you absolutely certain you never agreed to sterilization?" The image on the screen wasn't damage. It was design. I didn't need comfort. I needed leverage. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. I logged in. At 6:12 a.m., I opened the hospital's patient portal, the one he said I never needed because he handled everything internally. The system hesitated, then let me in. Most patients see summaries, appointment dates, generic notes. I saw folders, surgical archives, consent records. He hadn't restricted my access. He'd assumed I would never look. I opened the surgery from 7 years ago, the emergency procedure he called routine. Procedure duration, 2 hours, 14 minutes. That didn't match. An appendectomy doesn't take that long. It never has. I clicked associated documents. One file. A scanned consent form. My signature sat at the bottom of the page, familiar and wrong at the same time. Then I checked the metadata. Uploaded at 3:47 a.m., 46 minutes after anesthesia had already started. You cannot consent while unconscious. I downloaded the file. Then I opened something most patients never know exists, the audit log. Every access, every edit, every override. The consent form hadn't just been uploaded. It had been modified, once during the surgery, once 6 months later, and once last week. He hadn't just altered my body. He'd maintained the lie. I called medical records. "I'm reviewing my history," I said calmly. "My intake packet looks incomplete." The clerk paused. "Page 3 is missing," she said. "What was on page 3? Another pause. "Secondary procedural authorizations." I thanked her and hung up. Then I called billing. Billing doesn't lie. It doesn't care about reputations, only codes. The invoice loaded quickly. Most of it was ordinary until the bottom. Electrosurgical coagulation, bilateral meant both sides. Both tubes. That code didn't belong to an appendectomy. It belonged to a decision. I saved everything, screenshots, PDFs, timestamps. Then I submitted a formal data request for archived backups. Hospitals keep them for compliance. Files deleted from active systems often survive there. Automated response. Ticket generated. Processing time, 72 hours. 3 days for him to notice. My phone buzzed. A text from my husband. "Morning, did you sleep okay? You didn't take your pills last night." I checked the time. 6:34 a.m. He was checking compliance. I didn't reply. I forwarded every file to a secure folder and shared access with one person, the only friend who had never trusted him. Then I searched the audit log again. Not for my name, for his. Doctor access, EB admin action. Record sanitization, not correction. Not update. Removal without trace. He had built himself a back door, and now I knew exactly where it was. He thought deleting the past would protect him. He forgot one thing. Systems remember longer than people do. The first sign wasn't a call. It was an email. At 9:18 a.m., a system notification appeared on my phone. Subject: Data Access Confirmation Department, Health Information Governance Reference, Patient-Initiated Record Review Administrative. Boring, easy to ignore, unless you'd seen it before. Patient-initiated reviews don't accuse anyone. They create visibility, quiet oversight, the kind that doesn't announce itself. I hadn't filed a complaint. I hadn't named him. I'd simply asked for my records. That was enough. I opened the audit log again. At 9:21 a.m., a new entry appeared. Doctor Access, EB Admin Action. View audit trail 3 minutes after the email. He was watching the watchers. I didn't move. I didn't react. I let the system do what it was designed to do when someone touched what they weren't supposed to touch. At 9:26 a.m., another flag appeared, this one invisible to patients. Event: repeated administrative overrides following patient data request severity. Low status. Logged low severity. Logged. Logs don't disappear. They accumulate. At 10:03 a.m., his assistant called. I let it go to voicemail. "Hi, just checking in," she said. "Dr. Brooks noticed some unusual system activity related to your chart. He wanted to make sure everything's okay." Unusual system activity, not concern. Containment. I didn't call back. Instead, I submitted a second request, this time through the hospital's legal archive, not the clinical system. Different servers, different oversight, different chain of custody. At 11:42 a.m., a new user ID appeared in the access log. Compliance Officer RM-114, she didn't open the file and close it quickly. She stayed, that mattered. At 12:10 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it was him. I answered. "Hey," he said lightly, too lightly. "My office mentioned some record requests. Are you feeling anxious again?" Again. "I'm reviewing my history," I said. A pause, controlled. "You don't need to do that," he replied. "That's what I'm here for." There it was. "No," I said, one word. The line went quiet. "I already submitted the request," I added. "Through legal archives." Silence. "That process takes time," he said carefully. "I know." He exhaled, slow and deliberate. "We should talk when I get home." Not a request. A repositioning. He ended the call. At 1:37 p.m., a new note appeared in the audit trail. Comment: cross-system discrepancies identified. Review pending. Pending means frozen. Records under review can't be edited, can't be sanitized, can't be overwritten. His back door still existed. It just no longer opened. I sat at my kitchen table, watching timestamps appear one by one. Each one proved the same thing. He was reacting, which meant control had already slipped. He thought managing outcomes would protect him. He didn't realize the system had stopped listening, and it was about to start documenting. The next communication didn't come to me. It went to his office. At 8:41 a.m., the hospital's compliance division issued a formal preservation notice. No accusations, no language designed to frighten, just instruction. All relevant records must be preserved in their current state. By 9:02 a.m., the clinic's internal systems scheduled a mandatory compliance briefing. Attendance required, no exceptions. I watched staff accounts open the notice one by one, not his. At 9:11 a.m., his user ID finally appeared. Doctor Access, EB Admin Action. Acknowledge preservation notice acknowledged means received. Received means accountable. At 10:30 a.m., the hospital's legal department issued a second document, external. A request for records, addressed directly to the Fertility Institute. Scope included surgical consent protocols, administrative override usage, audit log access history timeframe. 7 years means pattern. Pattern means exposure. At 11:17 a.m., his professional directory updated. Not publicly, not visibly. Internally, a small gray tag appeared beside his credentials. Status: under review patients don't see that. Boards do. At noon, his assistant canceled his afternoon procedures. The reason given was neutral. Scheduling conflicts. But surgeons notice when knives stop moving. At 12:48 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from him. "We need to talk." Today, urgency stripped of authority. I didn't reply. Instead, the hospital's risk management office called. The woman on the line didn't ask how I felt. She didn't apologize. She asked questions. Had I been informed of secondary procedures? Were long-term reproductive effects explained? Was consent reaffirmed verbally? I answered clearly. She thanked me and ended the call. At 2:06 p.m., the Fertility Institute received an inquiry from the state medical board. Boards don't investigate individuals. They investigate patterns. At 3:14 p.m., his name was removed from a conference panel scheduled for next month. No announcement, just absence. At 4:02 p.m., a donor postponed a funding meeting. Postponed is polite language for risk assessment. By 5:30 p.m., the clinic's website updated its leadership page. His photo remained. The biography beneath it shortened. Awards removed. Editorial features gone. Still present, just diminished. That evening, he came home early. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He asked careful questions. Who had I spoken to? What had I requested? Why hadn't I told him? I answered none of them. For the first time, he was explaining himself to administrators, to partners, to people who didn't love him. Later that night, a document appeared in my secure folder. Stamped. Dated. Notice of formal review initiation the system had stopped observing. It was documenting. He built his authority on credentials and silence. Now both were under review, and the next letter wouldn't ask questions. The final letter arrived without urgency. No bold text, no warnings, no language meant to frighten, just procedure. It came from the state medical board, delivered to his office and copied to the hospital's legal department. Subject, notice of temporary license suspension effective. Immediately temporary is a procedural word. It means pending review. At 8:07 a.m., his credentials were disabled across the hospital network. Access denied. Administrative override revoked. Clinical permissions removed. A system doesn't argue when authority is withdrawn. It closes doors. At 8:19 a.m., the Fertility Institute received instructions to reassign all patients under his care. Not cancel, not explain, reassign. At 8:42 a.m., his professional email stopped accepting messages. Automated response, recipient unavailable. Unavailable is not punishment, it's removal. At 9:10 a.m., the hospital issued a mandatory referral to the Attorney General's Medical Crimes Unit. Referrals don't accuse. They transfer responsibility. At 9:36 a.m., the board expanded its request. All surgical consent forms approved by him over the last decade. Scope expansion is never routine. At 10:11 a.m., his name disappeared from the hospital directory. Not archived, not flagged, gone. At 11 o'clock a.m., the clinic issued a single internal notice. Dr. Brooks is no longer affiliated with this practice. No explanation followed. Explanation invites questions. Silence closes files. That afternoon, he sat at the kitchen table and opened his laptop out of habit. The login failed. He tried again, then once more. He didn't look at me. People look for answers when they believe answers still matter. At 2:04 p.m., a courier delivered a sealed packet addressed to him. Inside were copies of documents I had already seen. The difference was the footer. Evidence copied chain of custody established chain of custody means no edits. No deletions, no sanitization. That evening, the hospital released a public statement. 2 sentences. We are cooperating fully with regulatory authorities. Patient safety remains our highest priority. No names, no defenses. Institutions don't protect individuals, they protect themselves. At 7:10 p.m., the board updated its registry. Searchable only by license number. Status, suspended reason. Under investigation is not temporary. It's a holding pattern that empties rooms. At 8:45 p.m., he packed a box from his office. Awards, plaques, printed journals. None of them functioned anymore. Credentials only exist while systems recognize them. That night, I opened my secure folder one last time. Every document time-stamped. Every access logged. Every action preserved. Nothing else was required. I didn't confront him. I didn't explain. I didn't ask for apologies. The system had already recorded everything he was, and everything he no longer was. He thought control meant silence. He was wrong. Control belongs to whoever keeps the record.